I'm going to talk through the information sheet on phobias during COVID-19 pandemic. Here at Wellbeing, we understand that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we may be experiencing more worry and anxiety than we usually do. This is a completely understandable and a normal reaction to a very stressful and unusual situation. This might mean that if we already struggle with a phobia, the extra stress and anxiety can make it more difficult to manage. So what is a phobia? Most of us are afraid of something which in reality is unlikely to cause us harm. These fears can range from bugs to small places to busy environments. We may develop fears about anything. For some people, this fear can be very intense and their lives can be disrupted from going to extreme lengths to avoid coming into contact with the thing that they fear. It can be incredibly distressing for some people and can have an impact on them being able to go out of the house or meet up with people. If you have an intense fear of an object, situation or animal and take severe measures to avoid being confronted by any of these and get intensely anxious if you do, feel frightened or overwhelmed by nervousness, you may be struggling with a phobia. What causes phobias? What causes phobias differs from person to person. Some people may have experienced a traumatic event or a specific incident. It may be a learned response from a caregiver or sibling. So for example, if your father was terrified of spiders and expressed this, it might be something that you learned to avoid from a young child. Genetics may also play a role if you're prone to anxiety-related difficulties. A vicious cycle is a mixture of people's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations and behaviours. The combination of this results in a vicious cycle. It might make it difficult for a person to manage their phobia, and we're going to have a look using an example below. Susan was bitten by a dog when she was a child. As a teenager, she avoided going to her friends' houses if she knew that they had one, for fear that she would get bitten again. Now as an adult, she experiences intense fear and will go out of her way to avoid dogs. So if we break this down into different sections, the situation that's elicited the anxiety, the phobia anxiety, is seeing a dog in the park. And the emotions that she's felt are fear, panic, anxiety and anger. The bodily sensations are heart racing, breathing faster, sweaty and shaking. And she noticed thoughts going through her mind. It's going to attack me. I can't cope with this. I need to leave this situation. The behaviours that this would result in is her taking an alternative route, avoiding the dog, and sometimes she would avoid leaving her flat altogether. So if we break this down into more detail, the physical sensations that phobias produce are related to anxiety, as phobia is an anxiety disorder. So therefore, people will often experience the physical sensations of anxiety when they come into contact with their phobia. These can include shortness of breath, increased heart rate, sweating, shaking and dizziness. These sensations in themselves can be very distressing and, in turn, may exacerbate the feelings of fear that the person has towards their phobia. People often experience unhelpful thoughts and a range of those that keeps their phobias going. Often people tend to underestimate their ability to cope with certain situations and overestimate the threat that is facing them. Examples of unhelpful thoughts might be, I won't be able to cope, or I'll pass out if I go outside, or that dog is going to hurt me. This often increases feelings of anxiety that they may already have and often results in people participating in avoidance behaviours to cope. So moving on to behaviours, people can go to extreme lengths to avoid their phobias. They may take long routes back home from work, avoid meeting up with people, or avoid leaving the house at all. Unfortunately, by doing so, we are never able to learn that we might be able to manage our fears more effectively than we think. We might also use safety behaviours to help us cope. So for example, only leaving the house with a friend or having a drink before we leave the house. Avoidance and safety behaviours stop us from learning that we can cope when we are faced with our phobias and that they're not as dangerous as we think. Therefore, the best way to manage our phobias is often to confront them. So what does treatment look like for phobias? Commonly used treatments include relaxation techniques. So this is because coming into contact with our phobias can often elicit symptoms of anxiety, and utilising relaxation techniques is a useful way of learning to manage phobias. There's also talking therapies that are available, including cognitive behavioural therapy, as well as some medications. People often find that a combination of these approaches is helpful. Talking therapies often utilise exposure therapy, whereby you gradually expose yourself to the phobia in small, manageable chunks. Here at Wellbeing, we offer a group cognitive behavioural programme aimed at helping individuals manage their phobias more effectively. We're going to talk through some ways to help you manage the symptoms of anxiety. So first, we're going to have a look at belly breathing. So as this helps you kind of manage anxiety symptoms, it will hopefully allow you to manage that when you are faced with your phobia. So belly breathing is the first one that we're going to go into. The way that we breathe is strongly linked to the way that we feel. When we're relaxed, we breathe slowly. When we're anxious, we breathe more quickly. This allows the body to take in more oxygen and prepares us for the flight, fight or freeze response. It's therefore important to try and slow down our breathing, as this signals that the body is safe. Breathing is far more effective when we use our diaphragms rather than our chest muscles. Sit comfortably in a chair and place a hand on your belly. Take 2 or 3 large breaths and imagine that there is a balloon in your belly. It should inflate when you breathe in. Practice so that the lower hand in your abdomen moves out as you breathe in and moves in as you breathe out. People often think that their tummy goes in when they breathe in, but the reverse should be the case. As you breathe in, your belly should move out. So as you breathe in, you should notice that your hand moves out with your in-breath. When you're feeling tense or trying to relax, try breathing out a little more slowly and deeply, noticing a short pause before the in-breath takes over. Don't exaggerate the in-breath, just let it happen. You might find it useful to count slowly or prolong a word such as one or peace to help elongate the out-breath a little. You can do that to yourself or you can do it out loud. Progressive muscle relaxation can also be a helpful tool in managing phobias and the anxiety that it induces. Our bodies respond automatically to stressful situations and thoughts by becoming tense, and the opposite relation also works. A good way of relaxing the mind is to deliberately relax the body. In a progressive muscle relaxation, each muscle group is tensed in turn, and the tension is then released. This relaxes the muscles and allows you to notice the contrast between tension and relaxation. Relaxation should be enjoyable, so if any part of the exercise is too difficult, skip it for the moment. If you have any injuries, you may wish to leave out parts of the exercise. So to prepare for progressive muscle relaxation, lie down flat on your back, on a bed, a couch or on the floor. Support your head and neck with a pillow or a cushion, or alternatively sit in a comfortable chair with your head well supported. Close your eyes, but only if you are comfortable doing so. We're going to get you to focus on different parts of your body in a sequence. And when you go through this sequence, we're going to ask you to tense and release the muscles in your body. We recommend that you use the following sequence, clenching and relaxing the muscle groups in time with your breathing. First, we're going to get to focus on your arm and your right hand. Clench and tighten these muscles, and then release them when you feel comfortable. We're then going to get you to move on to your left hand and arm, again clenching the muscles in these and really focusing on how that feels before releasing it again. We're going to ask you to move on to your right leg, again clenching and releasing and relaxing the muscles, and then moving on to the left leg. Have a think about the stomach and your chest next, again clenching your muscles and releasing it in time with your out breath. We're going to focus your attention to your back muscles. Pull your shoulders back slightly and clench these muscles. Notice how it feels. Notice how it feels to breathe in when you're doing so, and then gently relax these muscles. Next, we're going to put your attention towards your neck and your throat, pushing your head back slightly into the pillow or the surface that you're lying on, and clenching these muscles before relaxing. Now take your attention up to your face, scrunch up the muscles in your face before relaxing them slightly. Remember, if relaxation is new to you, then these techniques may feel a bit strange at first. It's important to practice them regularly and at a time when you are feeling less stressed, as this can help you apply the technique more easily when you are feeling stressed or anxious. Remember, practice makes perfect. Remind yourself that the physical symptoms you're experiencing are your body's natural response to the flight or fight or freeze response, and it is simply trying to protect you and keep you safe. These sensations will eventually pass. Another way to challenge your phobias is by challenging your thoughts. So when we are anxious or stressed, we tend to view things through a negative filter, which makes our thoughts unhelpful. We often assume that because we've thought something, then it must be true, but this is not the case. When faced with anxiety-provoking situation, it can be helpful to ask yourself the following questions. What is the evidence for and against this thought? Is what I am thinking a fact or an opinion? How likely is it that what I believe is going to happen and actually going to happen? Is there another way for me to view the situation? What would I say to a friend if they were in a similar situation? Another way to help manage phobias is to reduce avoidance. So try to resist the urge to run to a place of safety, as this will only reinforce the vicious cycle. Instead, try to stay in the situation until the anxiety reduces or passes. Use the thought-challenging breathing and relaxation techniques to help you manage the situation. This is the end of the phobia worksheet. Thank you from the Wellbeing service. If you are having suicidal thoughts, please try to discuss this with a loved one, or alternatively call Samaritans on 116 123 or access your GP or crisis service via NHS on 111. Thank you for listening to this.